Ooh, one viewer. Let's see who this is. How do I see who you are? Um, it's a little too quiet. I think that's just me. Hey, we have a new follower in here. Hello, hello, hello. Have this too and dissurrender. Can you guys hear me? Let's get some love in the chat, please. And ooh, first viewer. Whoop whoop. Okay, let's see. What scene do we want here? Okay. Um, start another tab. Start incognito. Okay, so today I want to cover something about the network tab using Chrome DevTools. So I want to sort of start with how to get around to looking at the network tab and what the use cases are, where it's helpful in debugging, and things like that. Can chat just confirm if you can see my screen and if you can hear my voice? And yeah, and if everything, like if the text is fine, let me just increase the text size. Ooh, 5 viewers up in here. Whoop whoop. I feel popular. Hey Ryan. Okay, let's go. All good. Text good. Everything's good. Let me just test out something here. Can you let me know if the network tab, the text is fine? Text size. Yeah, it seems like it's all good. If anything's going on, I am monitoring chat, so we'll go through that. So there's sort of two ways you want to look at the network of your sort of application or your website or whatever it is. Either you can do it on a browser level, or you could do it on your desktop level. On your browser level, it's very easy because you literally have a network tab here. And let's say I sort of reload some website, you'll see what's going on in the network tab. I'll get through what these mean in a bit, but I just want to show you how you want to sort of take a look at um, what's going on in your network. So either you could do it using this network tab, or you could use something like a desktop app. I personally use Fiddler. It does about the same thing. There's a little bit of setup to allow HTTP requests, but if I push this up here, can I increase the font size? Yes, I can. It does about the same thing. If I refresh this, you'll see I might have to turn on something. Um, Options, HTTPS, decrypt HTTPS traffic. Okay, so let me run through that again. So if you are using Fiddler. Thank you, Ryan. It's good to be streaming. I thought I'd be nervous, but apparently not. Also, chat on top of app content. I will try to see if I can disable the chat. I don't really know where to do that. At my chat. Um, um, Anyone know how to fix this? Um, Gameplay. Oh, right here. Okay, I'm gonna sort of make it smaller for now. Just one chat. Where did I put it? Here. Can I make the font size smaller? Um, Scaling down. It's not very readable, right? No, it's readable. Okay, I think that's readable. It's fine. I will change that at some point, but I don't want it to block any content. I still want it on stream, so I'm gonna just leave it up here. Okay, save that. Awesome. I will try not to stream any content in that corner there. I will keep that in mind. Um, okay. So going back to what we were doing here, right now it's not letting me see any sort of encrypted traffic because this is an HTTPS server or a site, which is HTTP secure. My desktop does not have access to the secure site, which is why it's called secure. Uh, to give Fiddler specific permissions to decrypt that kind of traffic, what I would do is go to Tools, go to Options, HTTPS. I think this capture HTTPS connects will already be ticked on. What you need to do is decrypt HTTPS traffic. I may or may not be disconnected from the stream. If I do, I will restart because it is gonna install some sort of certificate for me. Um, if I do get disconnected, apologies, I will start back up again. For now, I want to say okay, and hopefully that did something. Sometimes it gives me a pop-up saying, do you want to install this certificate? I don't know why it didn't give me that information, but if I refresh now, that still didn't do anything. Um, why did that not give me anything? Let me just restart this thing. Um, oh, right here. So it gives me that same sort of traffic here, and if I click on this, it gives me that same sort of traffic. And let me try something like, what do I want to try? Something like this. This is still HTTPS traffic, and as long as I can get the HTTPS traffic, I know what to do here. Okay, so it seems like I can get the HTTPS traffic. So I do have it installed. So what I did was go to Tools, Options, HTTPS, Decrypt, and sometimes it asks you to install the certificate, but this time it didn't because I've done it before. And if it does ask you to install a certificate, it's safe. All it does is your computer has access to read your internet traffic that is supposed to be secure. Downside and upside of this is Fiddler. That might be a little too loud. Was that loud? Can chat confirm for me? I'm just gonna disable this sound, just make sure everything's okay still. I don't want my computer noise to come in here. I was saying how the downside of this is Fiddler can actually look at all your traffic, including your passwords or anything like that. But Fiddler is I believe it might be an open source software. I'm not completely sure. They don't log any of your information. This is purely on your computer. I've used this before. This is safe, but do not take my word for it. Do your own research. I'm comfortable using it. What it what it lets me do is essentially the same thing as the network tab, which I will show in a bit. But if I go to, let's say, this thing here, and if I go to inspectors, and if I go to, let's say, raw, no, JSON, raw. So this is what my browser sent, which is my request headers. And then down here, my response is encoded. Click to decode, I will decode it. And then if I go to raw, I don't want raw, I want JSON. Do I want JSON? Text view, let's see which view I want. Um, what do I want here? Instead, you know what? Let me go to shortener.nmpereira.com. I know what that looks like. Okay, so it does essentially the same thing. It gives you the HTTPS content. It gives you what the GET request was, where it sent it, and I will explain this in more detail. But it gives you the request headers. It gives you the response headers. and it gives you sort of the response um, body. Now, um, the good thing about Fiddler is it decrypts all your traffic. Hey, Silent Spy. It decrypts all your traffic, including everything that's on your computer. For example, let me see if I can find something here. I don't know. Let me try to open. Uh, I guess Postman. We'll see if Postman does anything. Apologies for that white screen. Yep. So it sent things from Postman. So I'm just gonna stop this for now. Yeah, see, get Postman. So when I opened the desktop app Postman, it actually sent some traffic to the internet, and it gives me Postman's traffic here. Along the same lines, if I open, let's see, what else can I open? If I open a game, you can decrypt all the sort of information from there, and you can see what it's actually sending. Now, let's say I open GitHub Desktop. It does essentially the same thing. So when I do this, I'm just going to clear this for now, remove all. You'll see what a fetch does when you fetch on GitHub. So when I fetched on GitHub, I fetched 100 chats here, and it sent a request to api.github.com, repos, 100 chats, whatever. And then, um, let's see, which one was the fetch? I'm not sure which one was the fetch. I'm just doing this for the first time right now. But one of this information was a fetch request. If I change the branch, for example, it'll send more traffic, and then I can read whatever it is that I need to read here. And if I fetch again, it does all these things. I think it grays out when it's finished or something. I'm not completely sure. Anyway, so enough about Fiddler. It decrypts both your browser traffic and your desktop traffic. Where it's useful is desktop application debugging, but since we're only concerned with um, the browser, we can just use the network tab and it's very easy. So let's just go with that. I'm going to close Fiddler. We don't need it anymore. Now, where the network tab is helpful is, let's say, um, all my traffic, it goes to the internet, somewhere in the internet, comes back with a response. Something happens there, and the network tab captures that. My sort of browser will um, send some request out and get a response back. The network tab and or fiddler will just sort of record all that information. What sort of information is recorded here? There's a lot. You can essentially go through an app and see what information you get out of it and reverse engineer it. I will show you reverse engineering a very simple site at some point later, maybe today or some other time. But right now, I just want to give an introduction about the network tab. So I'm going to clear this out, and I'm going to say preserve log because I want everything to be saved. And I'm going to say let's leave cache as unticked, disable cache as unticked, no throttling, and show all traffic. We don't want to filter any of them. We'll show all traffic. Now, if I refresh this site, you saw that this actually refreshed, and there's some traffic here that showed up. So when I refreshed this site, what happened was it sent a GET request to this site, which is hosted on, for me, it's hosted on Railway, but you can host it on Roku, you can host it on Netlify, you can host it on your own computer, AWS, GCP, whatever it is, you can host it anywhere. It does the same thing. Um, so it gives me a bunch of information. I will go through the important information for now and then the less important information. The most important information, in my opinion, or actually not in my opinion, it is the most important information. It will send sort of a GET request to whatever this HTTP um, link is, and it gives me a status code of 304. What is 304? Let's find out. Status code 304. So 304 means not modified. I'm gonna just go to the list of HTTP status codes. I'm just gonna go to the MDN for it. A good way to find out what's going wrong is looking at the status codes. All the 100s are informational responses. All the 200s are successful responses, but they mean different things. Status code 200 means successful, there's nothing going wrong, everything's good to go. 201, for example, might be something else. I will go through the specifics right after. But the 300s are redirection. You either, the site that you went to is not available, it's moved permanently, or you got a redirect response, which we'll actually see in action today. 400s are client error responses, which means your browser, something went wrong in your browser itself. When you have, the most famous one is error 404. It's a 400 response because something went wrong on your browser, or not just your browser, maybe something in the request or response in your browser itself. That request response, something went wrong. Maybe your request, when it asked for a certain asset, like a certain file, it didn't find it, so it returns with a 404 error. Server errors are 500. So if something went wrong in the server, you would send a response 500 or starting with 500. Now, if I go to successful, status code 200 always says okay, which means let me go to one of my portfolio site here. And if I go to the network tab and say all, I'm going to disable reserve log for now. The first thing I get is, I'm not sure why it's sending me a 304. It should technically say 200. Yep, so at some places it does say 200. I'm not sure why it says 304 there, but here status code 200 means everything went okay. Most of the internet traffic will say everything's okay. Not quite sure why this is 304. Okay, and things like 201 is, I think, when you have a post request, you return the status code of 201 saying some asset or some information has been created. There are more things here that are not very highly used. The most important ones in 200s are maybe 200 and 201. 100s, I haven't really seen all that much other than 101 switching protocol, which we don't need to get in right now. The out of 300, the most important ones are 301, which is sort of a redirection, where if your server, you send a request and it redirects you to some other um, site, it gives you a status code of 301. We will see that today. None of these are very important. The 400s are very important. So status code 400 versus 401 versus 404 gives you a lot of information. For example, if there is some sort of something wrong with the request you sent from your browser, it might return with the status code 400. Um, if some information that you requested is not found, let's say you requested main.js, or you requested a picture, or more often you requested a favicon icon, which is this little icon here on the top of the browser. If it didn't find it, you will see a red console log saying 404. And if you go, let me see if I can find it here. This one has a favicon on my site, so it won't say anything. But here, I just refresh. I will disable cache for now, and then refresh. Oh, I know why it was 301 because it was reading from my cache, from my browser or something like that. I'm not completely sure what it was. But apparently it also did find a favicon, which is, I guess, a blank favicon, so it did actually work. But this now says 200 because I did disable cache. If I enable cache, it'll say 301 or 304 probably. It still says green because it's a success, but 304 apparently something to do with caching. I'm going to disable cache for the duration of this stream. So you can see it's 200, 200, and 301. Going back to the response codes, um, request 400, 404 are the important ones. The others are less important. I don't think they are very noticeable when you do all these things. And then the last important ones are the server errors. Server error 500 is something went wrong in your server and it's unable to complete your request, and they'll say server error 500. There are some that are pretty important here. I am not very familiar, so I will not cover them. Maybe 500, maybe 503. These first few are pretty important. Uh, Now, how you do that in code when you the surrender is saying 418 is the best one. Let's see what 418 is. I'm a teapot. It is pretty. Hmm. I want to see what this is. Hold on. Server refuses to brew coffee because it's permanently a tea. You know what? I'm gonna have an Easter egg, and I'm gonna say I'm gonna use 418 a lot. Thank you for that. Like you made my day. I don't know why this exists, but it exists, and I love it. Hey, intelligence. Okay. Now going back to our network tab here. If I refresh again, it'll do all these things. I'll just go to the very first request. It sent a GET request to this server, to this URL. It got back a status code of 200. There are other things that are sort of important here, but for our purposes right now, we'll skip over them. But just to show you some of them, you'll get your response headers and your request headers, along with your general information. If I expand the response headers, it will show certain things. Since I'm powering my server with Express, it'll actually say Express. Most of the time, it'll say Nginx, but right now it is Express. My server is running on Railway and not on Heroku, not on AWS or anything. It's running on Railway, which gives you this information. My request headers gives you some other information, shortener.nmperero.com. That's a GET request. The path is nothing because there's nothing after this. For example, there's nothing after this, whatever it is. So that's why there's no path there. It's just home route. Um, Things like what kind of content it is. Um, I guess right now, because it's an HTML content, it says text HTML. These things I'm not completely familiar with. Those are just things that are generated by the browser. By the browser. Also, that sound is very unnerving. I have to turn it down, but hey, instinct. Thank you for tuning in. More information. There is no cache apparently. I don't know what that means. For now, we can skip over all of that. So the most important information was these three things, just the first three things. And if I go to preview, it'll just show me because it's an HTML file, it'll give me a preview. And then the response is basically my HTML file. This is exactly what my HTML file looks like. So paste a link to shorten it, uh, text box, button, and a tick box. So you'll see those things right here, text box, checkbox, and submit button. And then it's connected to my main.js, but this is basically my HTML for this website. Um, so request, response, and some other things are important. Maybe cookies, but we don't need to get into that right now because it's a lot more complicated. Initiator and timings, let's not even get into that right now. There are useful things you can get out of this. For now, we can skip over them. The next thing is we know that our from our response that our styles.css is first, and then we have our main.js. And if you see our order of operation here, style.css or our HTML got loaded first, then our CSS because it's at the top, then our main.js because it's at the bottom. And apparently, because I have not included the favicon icon, it's at the bottom because I think that's a default. Any questions so far in chat? I know I've been going on and on for a little bit, but let's see if we have any questions. Hey, Instinct. I'm gonna give a tiny little break for myself to breathe and to ask any questions. What are we making? We're not making anything. I'm giving sort of a demo of the network tab. I covered a little bit of Fiddler, which is the desktop version of the network tab. Essentially, it decrypts all your desktop app traffic as well, including your browser traffic. So we're not making anything. I'm just sort of going through. It's a short stream. It'll be recorded after the fact. Hopefully it'll be recorded. Just going through the network tab. We are making software developers. Yes, we are. We are. This is pretty important content because this helps you debug so much information. So yes, we are making software developers. Okay. I do want to keep this stream a little short so people can rewatch it after the fact. So I will continue and then I will answer questions as we go. But please, please, please do answer or do ask any questions if you have. I will answer them. Okay. So back to how the CSS and the JS, main JS got imported. It is top to bottom, which is why we have our HTML, which loads in our style.css, which is on line 9. And then it renders everything else. And then it imports our main JS, which is over here, our main JS. I don't actually have anything in our main JS, I don't think. Um, I don't know if I have anything. I might have just a empty file there. Doesn't matter, but it would have shown any JavaScript files that are here. And then our style CSS, obviously, I have nothing here. It looks very pretty right now, which is why I have only one font thing here, and that's all. Uh, but this was a backend project, which is why I don't really have front end anything. Now, how this thing works is essentially I put a link here. It validates if it's an actual link or not. All this happens on the server side. As soon as I put a link here and I say shorten this, it sends a post request to the server. The server has some logic on the post request to do something, return the shortened URL, and we can go through that in a bit. But it's essentially a clone of tinyURL or Bitly. Let me just take I'm a teapot as an example. I'm going to paste that in here. Let's forget the network tab for now. I'm just going to show you the functionality and then go through the network tab. I'm not going to say make it unique because I want this to be the same every single time for now. And if I say shorten, the server sent this to me and it shortened this for me. Apparently it happened really quick because Express doesn't have any lag or anything for now. Also, my server logic is very, very simple. So it gave me this link. It does something. If I go to this link now, if I copy this, go here, watch what happens. Instead of going to anything like this, it'll go to I'm a teapot. It just redirected me to I'm a teapot. Let's break that down and see what actually happened. So I'm just gonna refresh this. I'm gonna paste my link here, and I'm gonna say I'm gonna clear everything so you see what's happening. I'm gonna say shorten. What happened when I shortened it? It sent a post request to shortener.nmperera.com, came back with a status code of 200. And remember, last time it was a GET request, and this time it's a POST request. Um, Request headers are pretty much the same. Response headers are pretty much the same. The reason it's pretty much the same thing is because I do have a redirect. I do have a redirect. If I did something else with that, it would actually show in here. But right now, I'm not doing anything. I'm just redirecting in my server to come back to this home page again and sort of render this as well. Um, we see that there's an extra tab here called payload. What that payload did was send my long URL to the server. Um, yeah, it sent this long URL to the server. It sent a post request, and my post handler sort of did something with that and sent me a request or a response back. What did it send? It actually sent me the HTML back because that's how I have it on my server. I have it so that it re-renders my EJS or my HTML, in this case, HTML file with an added sort of tag here, which is your shortened URL is whatever, whatever. I just have my logic to say re-render this same website with this extra line here. And that's all it does. But on the back end, I will show you how this works. I may have a mock interview to uh, make a URL shortener with somebody, and it may happen tonight or it may happen at some other point very soon. But since I sort of re-rendered this, it's just sending me back my HTML with my new HTML information. But the important thing is there's an extra payload because it was a post request. There is an extra payload. It sent me my browser sent the payload, the long URL to the server, and it did something with the server. It responded with something else. Pretty much everything else here is the same because it's essentially redirecting me to the same site. So nothing else changed at this point, but it did re-render everything here. Now, another very interesting thing happens when I actually go to the site. So let's go to this site. I am going to go to Google for now, just because I'll just start a new tab. I will open this, and this is very, very important. This essentially, in my interview, gave me information on how to sort of resolve or how a URL shortener works. In the interview itself, I was like, I'm not really sure how this works. I have an idea. I don't really know. I literally asked my interviewer, can I go to tinyURL and see what it does? And this is the process I went through. I opened my network tab. I hit recording. Um, I said preserve log because I didn't want to miss anything, which I had to show you how to preserve log and what it does. But for now, I will not show all don't filter by anything, show all requests. And if I go to this, you'll see what it does. So it redirected. It happened very instantly, but my server caught everything. So what happened was when I went there, it sent a GET request to this server, or to this link, sorry, and URL shortener.nmperera.com/something. When it sent that to slash something, it hit my GET request and it handled it accordingly. What it actually did, which I can tell you what it did, was the GET request, when it's slash something, it'll go to the database, read the shortened URL or shortened key, it'll read the longer URL, send it back as a redirect. 302 should be a redirect response. What is 302? Redirection 302. Okay, 302 is found. Um, I did have this in my, I believe I had this. I specified that it should give a 302, which is why it's sending a 302. What else did it send? Nothing much. Preview didn't show anything. Response didn't show anything. Initiator is not very important right now. Timing not important. Cookies not important. The only thing here that is important are the first three things. What request did it send? What what type of request method did it send? And what status code was it? Now, because it's a 302, I know it was a redirect. Now, if I actually go to the next request, you'll see that it redirected me to this longer URL. It sent a GET request. And this is just, if I go to this normally, this is what the request would have been. Any questions so far? It's nice having so many viewers. It's unnerving, but it feels really good at the same time. Manderroot, Dissurrender, Durin Whitestorm have this too. Instinct, Intelligence, and Ryan. Thank you for tuning in. Big, big, big shout out for my first stream. Okay. So now, this is essentially most of what the network tab does, but there are other really fun things it does as well. I will go through more complex or advanced topics when it comes to the network tab. Things like um, what can you actually do with the network tab, how you can debug it. I guess I can show you tinyurl and we'll see how it actually worked for me. Um, so let me just send the same thing and we'll see what it showed. Um, yep, so tinyurl, I put this link in and make tinyurl. It sent a request to /app/API/create. It sent a post request, status code 200. The payload was everything in here, including my long URL. It sends more things, which for us is not very important. But the request payload, which is what my browser sent to the server, was all this information. Most importantly, the long URL. The preview was, in this case, it hit an API, not the front end. It didn't redirect to the front end, which is why we don't have HTML here. The HTML shows up when, I guess, when it sort of re-renders, um, which is one of the other requests, which is different from what I did. I just sent a redirect. This one has a specific API, app.app/API/create, which is why we receive an object, not an HTML. So what it sent me back was my shortened hash function, again, which is just the string here, this guy. 356. It sent, not this one, alias. 356 is what it sent me. I don't know what this specifically is for tinyurl, but right now it's not very important. What is important is it sent me all this information. Most importantly is the alias, which is the link that I got back, tinyurl.com/356 whatever. So it sent me this, and the front end sort of concatenated the whole thing and put it in one thing as a single URL. Now, if I go to another tab, do this exact same thing. This is how I debugged it in the interview itself. I was like, oh, this is how it does it. Let me go through this. Temporarily. Okay. So let's see what it did. Oh, it actually didn't actually go there because don't have preserved lock. So it sent a GET request to 356 something something, and then when I got something back, which was a redirect. There are other things here which are not important. I'm not actually going to open them because I don't know what's in there. But it sent back my um, like my site that I wanted to shorten. It sent back as an HTML, and it's right here. Um, I'm waiting for any questions in chat if there are any, but if not, I do want to show one last thing before we end the stream, which is throttling. This is very, very, very important sometimes. And the where I used this was I had an app that was sort of in production. A lot of people were using it, and someone from another part of the world that didn't have the greatest internet, I believe this was in India, they were not able to load the site properly because some package that I was using was very, very heavy or something like that. And I thought I didn't know how to sort of debug it. So what I did was there are throttling options here. Let's say right now I have pretty fast internet. Doesn't matter what it is. Everything will load pretty much. If I have 4K running, it'll still load. But in other some parts of the world, um, it's gonna have slower internet. So if you want to sort of spoof that, you can do some presets: fast 3G, slow 3G, without internet, like disconnect your internet. What's gonna happen? And then you can have your custom internet options. If I say slow 3G, you'll see how long it takes. It might be instant. I'm not sure. Oh, it's actually taking some time. I already clicked it. It took a good 3 or 4 seconds. And I can see how long it took if I go to um, I guess let's just go to this guy. This guy took the timing took about 300 milliseconds. If I say no throttling and if I do the same thing, oh, it's still 300, but I think why is it still 300? What's happening? Let's see. Oh, this is what I want to see. This is 24 milliseconds if it's not throttled. I'll do it again. 24 milliseconds, it's pretty fast. If I throttle it to slow 3G, it's taking a few seconds still. It's still going on. The same request, apparently it's still doing 24 milliseconds. Maybe this is the part that's taking too long. This is 248 milliseconds versus no throttling. Let's see how much that gives me. Okay, sometimes it is slow. I am going to go to a different site instead because it's doing something funky with the redirect there. I'm going to do this one instead. This one took 129 milliseconds. My website basically it's built with React. Built with React. It took it took about 129 milliseconds. Let me see how much it is with throttling with Flow 3G. It's taking a couple of seconds. It took 2.2 seconds. If I keep doing it, it should still take 2.2 seconds. Yep, 2.3 seconds. Refresh again. 2.3 seconds. If I don't throttle it, it's going to be pretty instant. It's going to take 31 milliseconds, 28, whatever. It's going to be under 50 milliseconds. Now, if you really, really want to go ahead and do essentially some damage, you can have your custom sort of rules say slow is very slow, 10 kilobytes per second. Um, you mentioned, hey Mario, I came late to the stream. You mentioned in an interview, was this pertaining to the interview question for a job you applied for? Very similar. In an interview, I built this website. This was the interview that I ended up getting the job for. I was very comfortable doing this, but I just wanted to show what the network tab sort of um, does. I did show a demo of Fiddler, which is the desktop version of it. But yes, this stream is also recorded after the fact, so hopefully you'll be able to see it. If it's not, I will re-record this entire session again. This is my first stream, so I'm not very familiar with Twitch. So if it's not actually recorded, I apologize. Intelligence says, scroll down, there was one for 2 seconds. Unfortunately, I missed your message, but yes, we did find one for 2 milliseconds. And then Intelligence also says 150 to 300 milliseconds average reaction time for humans. Yes, my reaction time is much, much worse, but average, yes, 150 to 300 milliseconds might be right there. Yes. Um, so yeah, like when this happens within 65 milliseconds, I can't really see. I know you guys are have a lower sort of bit rate or something, but I'm telling you, I can't really see this page reloading. I can't see any change here. There's not much of a change because it's happening very fast. But if I go to slow, you'll see how slow it is. It's 100 kilobytes per second with a high latency. If I refresh, it's going to take a good few seconds, I think. I lied. I think slow 3G is slower than that, so I'm going to add another custom profile. Very, very slow. Maybe 10 kilobytes per second. That's going to be a pain. And 100 milliseconds. Let's see how much damage we can do with this. Very, very slow, sad face. If I go with this, oh, that's taking a few seconds. Apparently, slow 3G is slower than that. Ouch. But right now, my HTML sort of loaded in 1.8 seconds. My main.js loaded in 2.3 seconds. I'm gonna go make it even slower. Let's make it 1. Let's make some real damage here. The surrender says 122 milliseconds is the average ping between US to UK. That sounds about right because the distance from the US to the UK alone is causes that ping to happen. So that sounds about right. And if you play first-person shooters, it's very obvious what the. Sorry about that noise. I don't know if you can hear it, but apologize for that. Um, the average ping when you play something like Counter Strike, Valorant, or whatever first person shooter games, you'll see your ping there. 50 is good, 150 is almost unplayable, you'll be lagging a lot. 20 is really, really, really good. But 50 up and up, you'll feel the sort of lag. It's not really playable. 100, it's really not playable. Sorry, 50 is playable, but you'll have troubles. 100 and above, it's really not playable. 200 and above, like you'll die instantly every time you sort of try to do anything. So keeping that in mind, ping is very, very important. Anything above 100 milliseconds, you'll feel the lag happening on your website. So you want to do anything and everything to stop that from happening. You want your lag or your latency to be as low as possible. Um, it's a problem with bigger websites, and I might be able to show you things like YouTube loading. It actually takes a couple of seconds, or not seconds, less than a couple of seconds, but it is very noticeable because there's so much content that is being generated that it takes more than a few milliseconds. Um, so now we have throttling. I did 1 kilobyte per second. If I refresh this, it took 2.5. It's still going on. It took 2.25 milliseconds. And if I bring this further here, it shows sort of a waterfall view of what's happening. This request took long. The main.js took the longest for some reason. I'm not sure why it took the longest because it's an empty file. But it shows that it took the longest, and then favicon took sort of a shortened amount of time. So this is sort of the important information that you can find from here. Um, One last thing I want to show you is the different types of filters that you can find here. I am going to go to a different website that I created so I can show you that. Mario. And if I go to the network tab, clear this and refresh this, I do not want slow 3G, I want no throttling. The bottom says DOM content loaded in red. Let me go back and find out. DOM content loaded, or I guess, yeah, this is the total time it took. I haven't actually ever looked at all this, but because I throttled everything to very, very slow, it took 4.66 seconds for the entire request. Now, if I disable throttling and do it again, it's almost instant. It's 215 milliseconds. Now, this website uses something called WebSockets to do a specific thing. We can get to WebSockets at some point later on, but I just wanted to show you what kind of content. And since I'm generating a lot of things here, it's a very good website to sort of see what's going on. Just to demo this app for you, um, if I have a friend that I'm working with remotely, I can sort of duplicate. Right now, I'm just going to duplicate to show you what's going on. But if I have a friend that I want to work together with, I can just say I can share this link with them, which I'm just duplicating here to show you guys. So if I say start a timer for 5 minutes, it starts a timer on both sides. If I pause it at one place, it pauses on both. If I resume on one place, it resumes on both. I can do this with one of you guys as well. I can send it over the internet. The fact that it's connected side by side on my computer, that makes no difference at all. If I send it to one of you guys, one of my viewers, I send it to intelligence, you'll be able to see the same timer. That's the basic premise of this app. It uses something called WebSockets to do this. Um, and if you want to sort of debug and see what's going on, I'm gonna stop this for now. It loaded my website with the GET request. The response was the HTML file. Some really big damage you could do here is basically go through my HTML file and see what you can figure out, sort of reverse engineer what functions I'm calling. There's a lot of damage I could do here. I'm not actually going to show you anything because I don't want this app to break, but things like um, you could do a lot of damage. I'm not actually going to do it because um, I don't want, because this app is in production. I haven't actually fixed these things because this is a very good way of this is a very good um, intelligence says I already know how to do damage. Yes, I'm proud of the fact that you actually know how to do it, but I don't want to give that power to everyone. Um, but you can do a lot here. You can basically go through my HTML, see what functions I'm calling. You can go through my main.css, see what I'm doing. Maybe my main.js, or rather, I think it's called. Let's see what else I can find here. I'm using a logger function. Uh, Actually, no, this is not my logger function. This is from uh, a connected app that I'm using that I do not want to name right now. My favicon actually loaded because I do have a favicon here. So it actually loaded. There's a preview of what it looks like. Response is nothing. My CSS files, my snack bar and timeshare CSS show up here. Um, my Bootstrap shows up here. The fact that I use Bootstrap. Um, Tooltip is something I use on my app, so it shows up here as well. Um, my JavaScript, I haven't actually used main.js or anything like that. Yes, intelligence. We're not going to go there. We're actually not going to go there. It's going to break in production, and people are not going to be happy. And I don't actually want to fix it because this is a very good showcase of what damage you could do with the network tab. Um, but yeah, you can do a lot here. Um, you could do things like, you know what? I will show you one thing. Let's see what I can do here. Um, Let's see if this does anything. So I can copy this, and instead of none, I can say something else. Let's see what else I can find. Okay. So I literally found that off my HTML. If I do this equals none, let's see what actually happens. Nothing happened. And if I do inline, because that's the other option I found. Oh, you see what just happened. So right here, there's a resume. Because my server is actually sending information, it actually resets it. But if I do inline, my pause button shows up. You can see how this can cause damage because I can run something here if I find it. Potentially, I can do certain things. Right here, it says join something something timer. So let me try to sort of do another timer here. Why can I not do this? Refresh this. Start a new timer. Okay, here you see join this URL's share timer. I'm just gonna copy the exact same thing I saw, and I'm gonna change that information because I saw it on there. So document.title. Change this instead to say I'm a hacker. Ha 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 ha. Now I'm a hacker, hahaha, just showed up here, and I purely got that off my network tab because I have not sort of hidden that away. How to hide that away? Something called the bundler. If you bundle things up, you'll see something along the lines of, let me go to a bundled one. Okay, so how bundled JavaScript works is something like this. It is not very, like a human cannot actually read it all that much. It looks something like this, where it's all in one page, it's all in one line. It's not very readable, and even if you sort of use a prettier, it's still not very readable because like you can make sense of it, but everything about this is hidden away, and you use something called a bundler, which the most famous one is Webpack. Webpack actually bundles it for you. I have not used this. I do not want to use this for this app because again, I want to showcase how what you can do with this. Um, so yeah, a bundler essentially takes away all that power from a developer or a user and hides all that logic away as much as it can. So when I read this, I don't actually know what's going on. I mean, this particular one, yes, but sometimes I will not know because it's Bootstrap. I know what's going on here. At least I can figure things out if I spend enough time. But let's say if I go to YouTube and if I go to their um, thing there, is there youtube.com? I'm just gonna go to fetch XHR. Not fetch. I want JavaScript maybe. Yep, offline JS. I don't know why this is all hidden away. Yep, okay. So a random one here. Desktop polymer.js. I don't know what this is, but essentially it's very unreadable because they are using a bundler. This is production software, which is YouTube. They want everything and anything to do with hiding everything about it. So they use a bundler and it's very unreadable. So even if you make it pretty, it's still very unreadable. Yes, I could maybe make sense of what's going on, but everything about like the function names or the variable names are hidden away. Um, they make your um, code very short and concise, so your size is also very small. All these things are something that Webpack does. Um, and then going back to this guy, yeah, so bundling is that, and then what I did want to show you is it does a couple of things. You can filter by which response you want. Fetch XHR, I believe, might be something to do with fetching. I'm not going to get into that because I don't really know. But if I want to sort of filter only by JavaScript files, I can do that. Only by CSS, only by images. An image right now, I only have one on this website. By specific media, which I believe I have a Bell MP4 or a WAV file, I guess. I have that, so that gets loaded onto your sort of local machine, so it plays whenever that timer hits 0. Font files, which I believe I'm just using Google Fonts, docs, and other things. But another important thing is my WebSocket. And how this works is essentially if I click on a timer, it's running it down. Okay, so one of these is important. Yeah, I don't know if you can see it moving here, but one by one it's going down, 43, 42, 41. And this is something that the server is sending to the client to all connected clients. I basically found out how this is being done because I saw a very similar app, which is Cuckoo, and I basically reverse engineered that site and I did it that way. And to show you that, cuckoo.team. I'm going to start a 55-minute timer. How I built my app was reverse engineering what this app did. And it did the exact same thing. Different object, but it did the exact same thing. I will just open one of them. So not update activity, update timer, update activity, sure. It's sending the number of milliseconds that are left, the percentage complete, the formatted time, which is 54 minutes, 44 seconds, and then other things. The total duration is how many seconds I started the timer for, which is 55 minutes converts to 3,300 milliseconds. Or sorry, seconds. And yeah, that's it. So, like, you can find a lot of information in the network tab. There are probably other things that even I don't know. And if you guys have any cool things you can do with the network tab, like, I'll be interested to know. But for now, I think we have a really good overview of what the network tab does. I am going to use the next sort of 9 minutes for question and answers. So if you do have any, feel free to ask. Also, I would love some feedback on how the session went. Did it go too long? Did it go too short? Um, it is my first stream, but thank you. Applause. Thank you so much. I'd like some feedback on how it actually went. So I learned like 6 things, so you are good. Thank you so much, intelligence. I will be doing a lot more of these sessions, and I will be recording them, so whoever wants to see will be able to see it after the fact as well. And hopefully, I did hit um, record. Very smooth for your first stream. Thank you. Thank you so much. Dissurrender, have we spoken before on Discord, or are you new to my stream? I don't know if you go by a different name. If it's okay if you don't want to say as well. But I'd like you to inbox me on Discord right after. Oh, Dissurrender. I did not put that together. Thank you for tuning in. Who else is here? Let's see. Commander Root, Dissurrender, Durin Whitestorm. I don't actually know who Durin Whitestorm is. Have this too. Sophia Fox. Do we have any questions about whatever we went through today? Okay. In that case, I do want to keep this sort of very short. I will end the stream for now. Um, Feel free to ask me on Discord or my next stream or whenever it is. I'm the Ringmaker on Twitter. I remember you. Thank you so much for tuning in. I don't remember your name. You don't have to dox yourself, but I will reach out to you right after. Thank you so much for tuning in. Um, I am planning to do another session on stream where if you have a 100-hour project, feel free to reach out to me. I can do things like maybe architect your. It's going to be a conversation, of course. Either you can tell me what you want, I will tell you if I think it's right or not. Maybe things like architecting your front end, architecting your back end. I don't actually like doing front end specific things, but what I can do is I will show you something that I have worked on that I really love doing. If I go to Miro, so something like this is something I really, really love doing. I was building 100 hours, or my sort of 100-hour group project is 100 chats. Essentially, it's a networking app for 100 devs specifically. You swipe right, swipe left, swipe right to say yes, swipe left to sort of skip or say no, depending on what we want to do with it. And then if you swipe right, both of you on other users, you match and you get to chat or something like that. We'll see how it goes. But since I wanted to make it a networking app and not a dating app, there are certain things that I had to think about, like making your profile picture very tiny, uh, huge emphasis on the blurb and questions and prompts instead of things like what do you do for fun or tell me things about yourself, which are not very important in a networking context in terms of I want to make it so that it's not a dating app. I do want to make it into a networking app. So things like this were very important, and I had to think about how I want to sort of do the front end. Um, and I made a very basic skeleton of what the front end should look like. So things like name, profile picture, blurb, say yes, say no. Maybe later on I can swipe left and right. Um, Another sort of work on projects together side of the app, which won't be up for sort of the MVP, which is the first initial stage of doing it. Uh, and then once you match, what do you do with it? Like, do you have a chat or do you have um, reach out on other social media that you already have? Um, the settings pages, all this. It took me a good while, but I do want to do this on stream with somebody. It'll be like an interview or a client conversation where I ask you what you want to do with your app. I kind of architect that, or at least do a sort of drawing of how I think or how we think, I guess, the app should look like. And that will be a pretty much one-to-one conversation. You will be driving that session, and that's something I want to do with somebody. If anyone is interested, feel free to reach out on Twitter, Discord, LinkedIn, or any other platforms. It is something I really, really want to do. And even if it's not 100-hour project, if it's anything else, feel free to reach out. I can also sort of show you how to work with your backend itself in terms of how you store your data or how you sort of architect your routes, how you architect your backend, what you might use for your backend, what tools you might use. Um, so I'm not saying I'm very good at it, but what I do know, I would like to pass on. So feel free to reach out. Either way, I think I'm gonna wrap up. I'm gonna call it on the hour right now, and thank you so much for everyone who tuned in. Let's see if we can raid somebody. Do we have anyone to raid? Ooh, we do have someone to raid. Uh, let's see, Togglebit. Why not? We will raid somebody. I don't actually know how the raid works, so let's see. Pick a channel. DB. Okay, let's raid this person. Thank you so much for tuning in, and I will see you next time. Okay, people are ready to raid. Raid now.